The lumine-drenched avenues of Neo-Genesis throbbed with their customary chaotic vitality. Towering spires of crow-steel and luminoglass pierced the eternally crepuscular sky, their surfaces mirroring the flamboyant advertisements that bathed the metropolis in an artificial daylight. Kalen Voris, fresh from his rotation at the Atmo Sculpting Complex, traversed the alien conurbation bare-chested, his sculpted physique drawing appreciative gazes from the diverse xenoforms that called this melting pot home. The day had been grueling, 12 hours of maintaining the atmospheric regulators while the local functionaries attempted to justify why XY Larian consultants were denied access to the primary control systems. The same tired narrative, aliens presuming superior knowledge to the species that had perfected atmosculpting generations prior. A sound sliced through the city's discordance, a subdued sob that seemed incongruous amidst the harsh urban symphony. Kalen halted, his grav boots scraping against the plascrete sidewalk as he pivoted toward the source. There, huddled against a stained wall, sat a striking Zidonian female. Her jade-hued skin appeared to shimmer under the lumine lights, and her sable hair cascaded over shoulders clad in some form of ceremonial battle weave that looked both archaic and futuristic. While other pedestrians, XY-Larians and aliens alike, hurried past with averted gazes, Kalen felt a tug at his core. Perhaps it was the way her shoulders quaked with each sob, or perhaps it was simply his innate inability to disregard someone in evident distress. Whatever the reason, he found himself approaching her. "Hello," he offered softly, kneeling beside her. "Are you unharmed?" The Zidonian looked up, her iridescent optics widening fractionally at his presence. Why do you inquire?" she questioned, her universal translator imbuing her words with a subtle melodic resonance. "Because you are crying in the middle of the thoroughfare, and that is typically a sign that something is amiss," Kalen responded with a gentle smile. "I am Kalen." "Claren Vol," she reciprocated, dabbing at her optics. "And you are the first individual to pause. Hundreds have passed, but only a XY Larian displayed any regard." Kalen settled against the wall beside her, his bare shoulder almost contacting hers. "Well, we XY Larians have this irksome tendency to meddle in matters that are not our concern. So do you wish to disclose what has caused you to weep here?"
Clara exhalet a tremulaus brit.
"I have been banished from my lineage. My family's security consortium held a contract to safeguard the Galactic Concord's quantum relay network. We forfeited it today because I proposed implementing XY Larian cyberdefense protocols."
Schelaukhet bitterly.
Apparently, even suggesting XY Larian methodologies is sufficient to be deemed a species betrayer these days. Kalen emitted a low whistle. "That is harsh. But if you will permit my observation, it sounds as though your family's arrogance has just cost them their most valuable asset." "You do not comprehend," Clara stated, turning to face him fully. "In Zidonian societal structure, expulsion signifies complete severance.
No assets, no affiliations, no."
She gestured vaguely at the cityscape surrounding them. "No contingency plan," Kalen completed for her. He raked a hand through his disheveled auburn hair, deliberating. "Listen, I am acquainted with this exceptional little establishment nearby. They serve both XY Larian and Zidonian cuisine. Allow me to procure you sustenance, and we can strategize your subsequent course of action." Clara scrutinized him for a protracted moment, her luminescent optics probing his face. "Why would you aid a stranger?" "Because that is the XY Larian way," Kalen answered with a mischievous grin. "We interfere, we assist, and occasionally, we even manage to ameliorate matters. Besides," he added, rising and extending a hand to her, "I have a premonition that you possess some intriguing narratives to recount." She hesitated momentarily before accepting his hand, permitting him to assist her to her feet. "You are either the most altruistic individual I have encountered or the most imprudent." "Likely both," Kalen chuckled. "It is something of a species trait." As they proceeded toward the establishment, neither perceived the obscured figures observing from the alleyway, nor the subtle click of communication devices being activated. The lumine signs projected alternating patterns of light across their faces as they navigated the congested streets, Kalen occasionally guiding Clara with a gentle hand on her lower back when the throngs grew too dense. The unassuming gesture transmitted an unforeseen warmth through her, and she discovered herself studying his profile when he was unawares. The restaurant turned out to be a hole-in-the-wall locale named the Concord Point, its ingress marked by a holographic sign displaying both XY Larian and alien dishes. Inside, the ambience was cozy and secluded, with individual booths segregated by sound-muffling fields. The best of both worlds, Kalen declared as they settled into a booth. Xylarian comfort fare and Zidonian delicacies. The proprietor is a former Stellar Navy culinary specialist who espoused a Zidonian spice merchant. The Concord point lived up to Kalen's commendation. Gentle bioluminescent crystals diffused a warm radiance over their secluded booth, while the sound-muffling field engendered an intimate atmosphere. Clara discovered herself unwinding as they shared victuals from both their cultures, Pekin Zidonian root stew and the Stellar Navy's classic pasta alfredo. "So Kalen," Clara initiated, twirling pasta around her utensil, "enlighten me further regarding Zidonian security firms. I have perpetually pondered why your species predominates in that particular sector." Claria's luminescent optics sparkled as she leaned forward. "It is profoundly ingrained in our martial societal structure. We espouse that safeguarding others is the paramount vocation." She paused, imbibing a sip of her iridescent beverage. Although of late, numerous lineages have disregarded that protection must evolve concomitantly with technology. Kalen observed how the establishment's illumination played across her jade-hued skin, accentuating the subtle patterns that were characteristic of her species. He caught himself fixated and swiftly refocused on his repast, though not before Clara registered his appreciative gaze. "What of Xylarians?" she inquired, a faint smile gracing her lips.
VHY do your people insist upon eiding strangers?
It is not precisely a prevalent trait within the galactic concord. "Perhaps that is the rationale," Kalen retorted, his stubbled jaw lifting in a grin. "Someone must counterbalance all the indifference within the cosmos. Besides," he added, adopting a more earnest tone, "Xylar Prime's annals have imparted to us that occasionally, all it necessitates is one individually evincing concern to alter everything." Their colloquy flowed effortlessly, transitioning from societal disparities to personal anecdotes. Clara found herself enthralled by Kalen's narratives of atmosculpting endeavors, while he listened intently to her experiences in the security domain. As the evening advanced, their chairs had, somehow, migrated nearer to one another. "You are aware, Kalen," Clara stated, her voice diminishing to a near whisper, "in Zidonian societal norms, sharing a repast such as this, it is deemed profoundly intimate." Kalen sensed his pulse accelerate. "And here I presumed I was merely being affable." "Oh, you were," she rejoined, her hand locating its way to his bare arm. "But occasionally, being affable precipitates intriguing outcomes." The juncture was disrupted by a commotion at the establishment's ingress. 3 towering Zidonian females in formal lineage attire burst through the doorway, their countenances a blend of indignation and resolve. "Sister Clara," the eldest proclaimed, her voice carrying even through the sound-muffling field. "Disengage from that primitive forthwith."
Clara es Countenance flasht a de payade.
By the Lumina, they actually dispatched the retrieval cadre. She turned to Kalen, her expression simultaneously apologetic and defiant. "Those are my sisters, well, lineage sisters. They are likely here to rescue me from perpetrating further inappropriate choices." Kalen straightened in his chair but did not distance himself from Clara. "I am surmising this transcends mere security protocols?" "Significantly," Clara affirmed, her hand still resting on his arm. "Our lineage has been advocating for a more orthodox methodology. They opine that interaction with Xylarians, beyond rudimentary commerce, is beneath us." The 3 Zidonian women approached their booth, the sound-muffling field dissolving at their approach. The eldest, adorned in elaborate ceremonial armor, fixed Kalen with a disapproving glare. "You shall cease this untoward contact with our lineage sister," she decreed. "And this is a familial matter."
Kalen glangste Clara, rising an eyebrow in query.
She responded by sliding even nearer to him, her shoulder pressing against his bare one in manifest defiance. "It appears to me," Kalen articulated judiciously, "that you individuals have already unequivocally established she is no longer kin. You cannot have it both ways." The youngest of the 3 sisters hissed in umbrage. "You dare question our lineage traditions? This is precisely why Xylarians cannot be entrusted with matters of societal structure and decorum." "Intriguing," Clara interjected, her voice assuming a formal inflection. "Because from what I recollect of our traditions, once a lineage member is exiled, they are at liberty to forge nascent bonds. Or did you selectively omit that segment, Sister Mavara?" The establishment had fallen silent, other patrons observing the unfolding drama. The proprietor, a brawny ex-Wylerian with a Zidonian espousal tattoo discernible on his neck, advanced nearer to their table, manifestly prepared to intercede if necessary. "You cannot conceivably be contemplating." The middle sister commenced, her voice trailing off as she observed how intimately Clara and Kaelin were seated. "I am contemplating numerous matters," Clara retorted coolly, "inclusive of why my former lineage evinces such fervent interest in my choices subsequent to explicitly expelling me." Kaelin remained taciturn but vigilant, his physique tensed for action. He had dealt with a sufficient number of familial disputes during his atmosculpting assignments to discern when circumstances might escalate to physicality. The eldest sister's countenance darkened. "You would select this bare-chested savage over your own kindred?" "Initially," Clara stated, rising gradually, "I am selecting myself. Secondly," she glanced at Kaelin with a blend of amusement and appreciation, "I happen to find the bare-chested aesthetic appealing. It is refreshingly forthright, unlike certain lineages I could enumerate." Kaelin rose as well, his imposing stature matching the Zidonian sisters. "Ladies," he said diplomatically, "how about we all de-escalate and—" "Silence, ex-Wylerian," the youngest sister snapped. "This does not pertain to you." "Actually," Clara interjected, sliding her hand into Kaelin's, "it most emphatically pertains to him. Because as of this instant, I am formally soliciting ex-Wylerian protection under Galactic Concordance Statute 47 Beta." The sisters' faces displayed varying degrees of consternation and abhorrence. Statute 47 Beta was seldom invoked. It permitted any sentient being to claim provisional protective status from another species if they perceived their own kindred posed an endangerment to them. "You would not dare," the eldest whispered. "I already have," Clara affirmed resolutely. "Now, unless you desire to instigate an interspecies incident, I propose you depart and permit us to relish our repast." The ensuing weeks metamorphosed Neogenesis from a frigid lumine-lit metropolis into something entirely disparate for Kaelin and Clara. Their legal contention against her former lineage became a backdrop to their deepening rapport as they navigated both interstellar bureaucracy and their burgeoning attraction to one another. Kaelin's apartment, a commodious loft within the atmosculpting district, became their unofficial headquarters. The industrial-style space, with its exposed crow-steel girders and panoramic vistas overlooking the city's perpetual twilight, proffered them a sanctuary from the escalating duress of their predicament. "Your lineage's legal cadre filed another remonstrance," Kaelin announced one evening, tossing his data slate onto the kitchen counter. He had just returned from a rotation at the atmospheric regulators, his bare torso still glistening from the facility's humid environs. "They are asserting Statute 47 Beta is inapplicable because they are acting in your optimal interests." Clara looked up from where she sat cross-legged on his sofa, encompassed by legal documents. The preceding weeks of cohabitation had transmuted their dynamic. What commenced as exigency had evolved into something far more intimate. "They are becoming desperate," she responded, her jade-hued skin capturing the apartment's warm illumination. "The Galactic Tribunal has never overturned a protection claim predicated on optimal interests." Kaelin procured 2 beverages from his refrigeration unit and joined her on the sofa. "Nevertheless, it is enervating you. I can perceive it." "It is not the legal contention that is enervating me," Clara confessed softly, accepting the beverage. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, transmitting a familiar spark through both of them. "It is other matters." The tension between them had been escalating steadily, their nonchalant touches becoming less nonchalant, their gazes lingering longer. The Zidonian societal taboo against ex-Wylerian alien relationships solely appeared to intensify their allure. "Automatas," Kaelin prompted, his voice diminishing lower as he observed how they gravitated toward one another. Clara set her drink aside, her luminescent optics meeting his. "Zidonian females are not supposed to be attracted to other species," she elucidated, her hand finding its way to his chest. "We are especially not supposed to find ex-Wylerians intriguing. But you have been different from the outset. You paused when no one else would. You cared when my own people ostracized me." Kaelin captured her hand in his thumb tracing patterns on her palm.
Ihr Marquierings Sentiments ist transcend simple Attraktion.
"Nothing about this is simple," Clara concurred, shifting closer. "My sisters would contend I am betraying millennia of societal purity. But when I am with you—" She paused, summoning her courage. When I am with you, I feel more authentic than I ever did adhering to their rigid traditions. Their initial kiss was tentative, exploratory, a bridge between two worlds that had expended centuries maintaining a meticulous distance. When they parted, both marginally breathless, Kalen rested his forehead against hers. "Your lineage is going to have a conniption with this," he murmured, though he could not suppress the smile from his voice. "Let them," Clara retorted, her fingers tracing the contours of his face. "They have already appropriated everything else. They do not get to appropriate this as well." What ensued was a night of revelation, of barriers shattered and bridges constructed. Their union was more than mere physicality. It was a rebellion against eons of prejudice, a declaration that affection could transcend species and tradition. The morning brought nascent challenges. Kalen's communication unit buzzed incessantly with updates from their legal team, while Claria's former lineage had apparently leaked intelligence of their relationship to the planetary media. But enfolded in each other's arms, observing the artificial dawn paint the metropolis in hues of violet and gold, neither could summon themselves to regret their choice.
"You comprehend what this signifies?"
Clara inquired, tracing patterns on Kalen's chest as they lay in bed. "And once word disseminates, there is no retraction. The conservative lineages will exploit this to endeavor to substantiate XY-Larians are corrupting influences." Kalen tightened his arm around her. "Let them endeavor.
We possess veracity on our side.
And the last time I verified, that holds significance in the Galactic Tribunal." A notification pinged on their primary display screen. Their legal representative, a seasoned XY-Larian Zidonian relations specialist named Lyra Rexus, materialized with an urgent expression. "We have a predicament," she announced without preamble. "The lineage of Nval has petitioned for an emergency hearing. They are alleging your protection request was part of a premeditated stratagem to execute precisely what you have done. They are arguing it invalidates the entire claim." Clara sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest. "That is preposterous. They cannot conceivably substantiate that." "They do not have to substantiate it," Lyra retorted grimly. "They merely have to instill sufficient dubiety to procure your protection orders suspended. If that transpires." She left the ramifications suspended. Kalen joined the discourse, his expression resolute. "How much time do we possess?" "The hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning. I advise you both to brace for a contention. This is no longer merely about Statute 47 Beta. It is on the cusp of becoming a precedent for XY-Larian Zidonian relations." Subsequent to Lyra's sign-off, Clara turned to Kalen with apprehension in her luminescent optics. "I never intended to embroil you in an interstellar incident." Kalen drew her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead.
"He, recall ho vi met?"
"I possess a proclivity for meddling in matters that are not my concern. Besides," he added with a roguish grin, "someone must demonstrate to the Galactic Concord that XY-Larians and Zidonians can accomplish more than mere toleration of one another." The Galactic Tribunal's imposing architecture loomed before them, its crystalline spires reaching toward Neo-Genesis's perpetually twilit sky. Kalen adjusted his formal attire, a concession to protocol that had him donning an actual shirt for once, while Clara stood beside him in traditional Zidonian legal vestments, her jade-hued skin particularly radiant in the morning light. "Prepared?" he inquired, clasping her hand. Before Clara could respond, a wave of vertigo washed over her. She swayed slightly, steadying herself against Kalen's solid frame. "I am fine," she insisted, though her complexion had assumed a peculiar iridescent quality. "Merely apprehensive regarding the hearing." Lyra Rexus met them at the courthouse entrance, her expression somber. "The lineage of Nval has assembled a formidable legal team. They are pressing vehemently on the corruption of bloodline Zangle." She paused, scrutinizing Claria's appearance.
"Are you well?"
"You appear somewhat luminescent." "I am fine," Clara reiterated, though Kalen observed she maintained one hand pressed against her midsection. "Let us concentrate on the hearing." The courtroom was thronged with representatives from diverse species, all eager to witness what had become the most publicized case in recent memory. The three-judge panel comprised a XY-Larian, a Zidonian, and a neutral Centauran, standard procedure for interspecies disputes. The lineage of Nval's legal team launched into their arguments immediately, depicting a scenario of XY-Larian manipulation and cultural degradation. Kalen felt his jaw clench as they described him as a predatory influence who had corrupted a noble scion of Zydonia. Furthermore, the lead counsel declared, "We possess evidence that their liaison commenced prior to the protection claim being filed, substantiating this was a premeditated endeavor to circumvent proper societal protocols." Lyra rose to object, but Clara suddenly ascended from her seat, her skin now definitively glowing. "I necessitate." She managed before hastening from the courtroom, leaving a trail of bioluminescent particles in her wake. Kalen initiated to follow, but Lyra grasped his arm. "I shall attend. You are required to remain here. Whatever is transpiring, we cannot furnish them with further ammunition." The proceedings continued, but Kalen scarcely heeded the arguments. His consciousness was with Clara, pondering what could induce a Zydonian to literally glow. He had collaborated with their species for years and had never witnessed anything analogous. When Lyra ultimately returned, her expression was inscrutable. She leaned in close to Kalen, whispering, "We necessitate requesting an immediate recess. There is something you require being apprised of." The judges granted their request, and Kalen found himself being escorted to a private conference chamber. Clara was already present, her skin pulsating with a gentle golden light that appeared to emanate from within. "I am with child," she announced without preamble, her luminescent optics meeting his. Evidently, this luminescence is how Zydonian females proclaim their condition to their mates. It is supposed to be impossible with Xylarians. Kalen felt the chamber gyrate slightly. "How?" "The ancient narratives," Clara continued, her voice tremulous with emotion, "the ones concerning Xylarian adaptability, concerning your species' singular genetic malleability, they are all veracious. Somehow, you have accomplished what eons of xenobiologists declared could not be done." Lyra cleared her throat. "This alters everything. Xylarian-Zydonian hybrid gestation has been theoretically deliberated but never achieved. The medical and legal ramifications alone."
"No," Kaelen interjected firmly.
"This is not about ramifications or theorems. This is about us." He moved to Claria's side, placing his hand over hers where it rested on her abdomen. "About our progeny. The lineage of Nval will necessitate genetic verification," Lyra cautioned. "They will endeavor to exploit this to substantiate Xylarian corruption of their bloodlines. But," she added with a faint smile, "they have just forfeited their principal argument. They cannot assert the protection order was solely about your liaison when there is now an unprecedented medical marvel involved." Claria's glow intensified at Kalen's touch. "There is more," she said softly. "In Zydonian societal structure, a child conceived in affection, irrespective of circumstances, is deemed a benediction from the ancient ones themselves. Even the most orthodox lineages cannot gainsay such a portent." "So what you are articulating," Kalen grinned, his earlier consternation yielding to elation, "is that our diminutive impossible marvel just precipitated their entire case's collapse?" "Not precisely," Lyra rectified, "but it furnishes us with a considerably more robust position. The Galactic Charter possesses specific provisions safeguarding the rights of hybrid kindreds. They never envisioned they would apply to Xylarian-Zydonian pairs, but the precedent subsists." The subsequent few hours passed in a whirl of legal maneuvering. When they finally returned to the courtroom, the lineage of Nval's team was manifestly disconcerted by the intelligence. The judges summoned a comprehensive medical examination to corroborate Claria's condition, but even the Zydonian judge appeared moved by the ramifications. "If substantiated," he declared, "this would transcend a mere legal matter. It would constitute a sign that perhaps our species are not as incompatible as we have long presumed." That evening, back in Kalen's apartment, they lay together, observing the city lights and Claria's gentle glow casting everything in a warm golden hue. The medical outcomes had confirmed what they already comprehended. They had engendered something entirely novel within the galactic concord. "You are aware," Kalen mused, his hand tracing patterns on her luminescent skin, "when I paused to assist someone weeping in the thoroughfare, I did not anticipate culminating in altering the course of interstellar relations." Clara laughed softly. "And I did not anticipate a bare-chested Xylarian to be the progenitor of my offspring. Existence is replete with surprises." The first assassination endeavor transpired 3 weeks subsequent to the gestation proclamation. Kalen was returning from his rotation at the Atmosculpting facility, his bare torso glistening in Neogenesis's artificial twilight, when he observed the security seal on his apartment door had been compromised. Years of operating in hostile environs had honed his instincts. Instead of entering, he retreated and contacted both building security and Lyra Rexus. Within hours, investigators unearthed a sophisticated bioweapon engineered specifically to target hybrid DNA sequences. It would have afflicted Clara and their unborn child while leaving pure-blooded species unscathed. The Pure Strain Initiative, Lyra elucidated during an emergency meeting in her secure office. They are a radical splinter faction that renders the lineage of Nval appear progressive. According to my sources, they have never accepted the ancient prophecies concerning species integration. Clara, her gestation glow now a constant shimmer, pressed closer to Kalen on the office's plush sofa. I have apprehended whispers concerning them. They opine that any dilution of Zidonian genetics is a cosmic transgression. Well, they just perpetrated a very tangible transgression, Kalen growled, his protective instincts in overdrive. That bioweapon would have terminated you both. Lyra activated a holographic display exhibiting security footage from their building. We have identified at least 3 operatives, all former lineage security specialists. This was not merely some fringe group acting autonomously. They possessed internal assistants. My sisters? Clara inquired, though she already comprehended the answer. Not directly, Lyra retorted, but the evidence intimates someone within your former lineage furnished building access codes and your medical data. Kalen rose, pacing the office with contained fury. So, what is the stratagem? We cannot remain concealed indefinitely. Actually, Lyra smiled, I possess something superior to concealment. She depressed a button, and a novel figure materialized within the chamber, a holographic representation of Grand Admiral Jax Therion, Supreme Commander of XYLR Prime's Atmosculpting Armada. Mr. Voris, the Grand Admiral nodded to Kalen. Given the circumstances, I am proffering you and your kindred immediate relocation to the XAS Colossus. It is our most avant-garde atmosculpting vessel, currently in orbit. The Pure Strain Initiative may possess influence planetside, but they cannot a Federation dreadnought. Clarius' luminescent optics widened. You would safeguard us? My dear, the Grand Admiral's hologram smiled, you are bearing what could be the most consequential child in recent galactic history. But transcending that, your kindred is now XYLarian. XYLR Prime attends to its own, and that encompasses those who elect to join our kindred. The relocation to the Colossus transpired within hours. The vessel was a marvel of XYLarian engineering, its vast corridors and commodious quarters a stark contrast to the utilitarian Zidonian vessels Clara was accustomed to. Their novel quarters incorporated a medical bay specifically calibrated for her unique condition. That night, as they lay in their novel bed, observing the stars through the panoramic viewport, Clara traced the contours of Kalen's chest. I never envisioned I would feel safer aboard a XYLarian vessel than amidst my own people. That is because you are perceiving it erroneously, Kalen retorted, drawing her closer. These are your people now. Every individual aboard this vessel would perish safeguarding you and our child. Their passionate embrace was disrupted by a priority alert. Grand Admiral Therion's voice filled their quarters. We have detected unauthorized vessels breaching orbit.
Pure Strain Initiative vessels, heavily armed.
They are on an intercept course. Kalen was already mobilizing, drawing on his grav boots. How many? 3 capital vessels, multiple fighters. They are claiming right of genetic preservation, under ancient Zidonian law. They are necessitating we surrender Clara for purification. Clara sat up, her gestation glow pulsating with indignation. They cannot conceivably anticipate the Federation to comply with that barbaric precept. They do not, Kalen apprehended. This is a kamikaze maneuver. They would rather perish annihilating what they perceive as an abomination than permit our child to live. The vessel's artificial gravity shifted as the Colossus executed evasive maneuvers. Grand Admiral Therion's voice remained steadfast. All hands to battle stations. Mr. Voris, proceed to the atmosculpting control chamber. If we are compelled to engage, we shall require those atmospheric regulators as armaments. Kalen turned to Clara, his expression intense. I am compelled to depart. The atmospheric regulators can be converted to generate plasma tempests. It might be our optimal offensive. I am accompanying you, Clara declared, already donning her modified battle weave. I was a security specialist, recall? And no one comprehends Zidonian assault paradigms better than I. They hastened through the vessel's corridors, the crimson battle lights casting everything in a sanguine glow. The Atmosculpting control chamber was a colossal enclosure filled with holographic displays exhibiting planetary atmospheres and meteorological patterns. The pure strain vessels are employing archaic Zidonian shield configurations, Clara announced, her fingers flying over the control panels. If we can generate a specific electromagnetic pulse pattern. Kalen grinned, already adjusting the atmospheric regulators. We can harmonize with their shield frequency and overload their systems. Beloved, you are a savant. The battle that ensued would subsequently be chronicled in Federation records as the Tempest War. The Colossus's atmospheric regulators, designed to atmosculpt entire planets, generated colossal electromagnetic tempests that danced amidst the stars. The Pure Strain Initiative vessels, their shields ineffectual against the precisely calibrated assault, never stood a prospect. As the final adversary vessel went dark, drifting powerless in space, Grand Admiral Therion's voice returned. Exemplary work, you two. Though I must confess, employing atmosculpting apparatus as a weapon system is inventive. That is XYLR Prime for you, Clara laughed, her glow brightening as Kalen drew her into his arms. Perpetually discovering novel methodologies to safeguard what matters. The communique arrived 3 days subsequent to the battle, transmitted through secure diplomatic channels. The lineage of Nval requested a private audience aboard the Colossus, not with their legal team, but with the lineage matriarch herself, accompanied solely by Clarius' youngest sister. It is a ruse, Kalen declared, pacing their quarters, shirtless, still damp from the vessel's training facility. The exercise assisted him in managing the duress of their predicament, though Clarius' appreciative gazes at his physique furnished additional motivation. Conceivably, Clara retorted, her gestation glow generating mesmerizing patterns on the walls. But my grandmother would not imperil her personal safety unless she was earnest. She is numerous things, but never imprudent. Grand Admiral Therion consented to host the meeting, though under stringent security protocols. The matriarch's shuttle would undergo comprehensive scanning, and the meeting would transpire in a neutral conference chamber with both Federation and Zidonian guards present. When the matriarch entered, even Kalen had to concede she carried an aura of undeniable authority. Her ceremonial robes, deep emerald with gold threading, appeared to absorb light rather than reflect it. Beside her, Clarius' youngest sister, Alina, appeared almost diminutive. Granddaughter, the matriarch spoke, her voice carrying eons of tradition, you have engendered quite the tumult within our society. Clara stood proudly beside Kalen, their fingers intertwined. I discovered my trajectory, grandmother, even if it was not the one you selected for me. Indeed. The matriarch's optics fixed on Kalen, the XYLarian who paused to assist a weeping maiden. Such an unassuming act, yet it has convulsed the foundations of our world. She paused, her expression softening slightly. Did you comprehend, XYLarian, that in our most archaic texts, there exist prophecies concerning a juncture when the barriers between species would dissipate? Kalen met her gaze steadily. With all due deference, matriarch, I did not pause because of any prophecy. I paused because someone necessitated assistance. Precisely, Alina burst out, earning a sharp glower from her grandmother. Apologies, but that is precisely the crux. The prophecies articulate natural bonds forged through compassion, not political arrangements or genetic engineering. The matriarch raised a hand, silencing her granddaughter. The Pure Strain Initiative's incursion has compelled our lineage to scrutinize its positions judiciously. Their actions, while radical, stem from convictions we assisted in fostering. She turned to Clara. Convictions I assisted in fostering, grandmother. Clarius' glow flickered with astonishment. Your triumph over their vessels was illuminating, not merely the tactical brilliance, but the impeccable fusion of XYLarian innovation and Zidonian erudition. It substantiated everything our ancient texts foretold concerning the fortitude discovered in unity. Kalen felt Clarius' hand tighten in his. What are you articulating, matriarch? I am articulating, XYLarian, that perhaps it is time for the lineage of Nval to recall its authentic heritage. We were once innovators, explorers. We guided our people to the stars. She straightened her robes, shimmering. The lineage of Nval formally acknowledges your union and extends its protection to your child. The silence that ensued was shattered by Alini's barely contained squeal of delight. Does this signify I can ultimately embrace my sister? The formal meeting dissolved into something more personal. Alina embraced Clara, while the matriarch and Kaelin deliberated the practical ramifications of her declaration. The lineage's resources would assist in safeguarding them from any residual pure strain zealots, and their influence would alleviate tensions with other conservative lineages. Later that night, in their quarters, Claria's gestation glow appeared brighter than ever as she and Kaelin celebrated their triumph in their own intimate manner. Their passion had solely burgeoned stronger through their trials, each challenge bringing them nearer together. You comprehend what I adore most concerning Exwilarians? Clara murmured afterward, tracing the contours of Kaelin's chest. Your aptitude for metamorphosis. You demonstrated to my grandmother that standing resolute does not signify standing stagnant. Kaelin drew her closer, marveling at how her luminescence painted patterns on his skin. And you demonstrated to me that occasionally, the grandest escapades commence with the most unassuming acts of benevolence. Their tranquil moment was disrupted by a priority alert from the bridge. Grand Admiral Therion's hologram materialized, looking apprehensive. We are receiving multiple distress summons from the Zidonian colony on Xylos Tertius. Atmospheric regulators are failing across the planet. Kaelin sat up, already reaching for his grav boots. That is inconceivable. Those systems are automated unless... Clara added, her security training activating. Someone desired to engender a crisis that necessitated both Exwilarian atmosculpting proficiency and Zidonian security erudition to resolve. The Grand Admiral nodded grimly. Precisely. Your grandmother's declaration is already generating ripple effects. Certain lineages perceive it as an endangerment to their power base. They are willing to imperil an entire colony to substantiate that our species are superior separate. How long do the colonists possess? Kaelin inquired, drawing on his attire. Without atmospheric regulators, 12 hours at most. The Colossus can reach them in 10. Clara was already donning her modified battle weave, her gestation glow pulsating with resolve. Then what are we awaiting? We possess a planet to salvage. Together, Kaelin added, drawing her in for a swift kiss. The matriarch's hologram joined the discourse. The lineage of Nval stands prepared to assist. Deem this our inaugural official act of cooperation. Xylos Tertius hung in space like a jewel forfeiting its luster. From the Colossus's observation deck, Kaelin and Clara observed as patches of the planet's atmosphere visibly deteriorated, engendering swirling patterns of chaos in the once stable, terraformed environment. The entire galactic concord is observing, Grand Admiral Therion announced, joining them at the viewport. Every major news network is covering this, the inaugural official Exwilarian-Zidonian joint operation since the acknowledgement of your union. Kaelin stood bare-chested in his work gear, having just concluded prepping the emergency atmosculpting apparatus. No pressure then, he quipped, though his expression remained earnest. Claria's gestation glow pulsed with determination as she scrutinized the tactical displays. The saboteur targeted the primary atmospheric control nodes. They comprehended precisely what they were undertaking. The lineage of Nval security analysis intimates internal involvement. A statement about cooperation, Kaelin proposed, his hand finding Clarius, exhibiting how perilous it is when our species share excessively much erudition. More likely endeavoring to substantiate we are superior separate, Clara retorted. But they have perpetrated a pivotal miscalculation. The Grand Admiral raised an eyebrow. Oh. They have furnished us with an opportunity to substantiate precisely the antithesis. Clarius' optics sparkled with that familiar resolve that had initially drawn Kaelin to her. We necessitate rendering this more than a mere rescue mission. We necessitate rendering it a demonstration. The plan they devised was audacious. Instead of endeavoring to mend each atmospheric regulator individually, they would attempt something never before contemplated, a comprehensive synchronization of Exwilarian atmosculpting technology with Zidonian atmospheric control systems. As they prepared for planetfall, the matriarch's hologram materialized in the shuttle bay. The optics of both our peoples are upon you. No pressure, of course. Her endeavor at Exwilarian humor drew surprised chuckles from the crew. The descent to Xylos Tertius was turbulent, the failing atmosphere buffeting their shuttle like an enraged beast. Kalen piloted while Clara coordinated with the ground teams, her battle weave modified to accommodate her gestation. The intimacy of their rapport exhibited in every seamless adjustment, every anticipated maneuver. "Recall how we met?" Kalen inquired as they approached the primary facility. "You weeping in the thoroughfare, me playing the hero." Clara smiled, her glow generating patterns in the shuttle's cockpit. "And now observe us, on the cusp of salvaging a planet while substantiating our peoples can collaborate. Though I still contend you were exhibiting off, ambulating around without a shirt." It functioned, did it not? Their banter was disrupted as they landed near the central atmospheric control hub. The facility was colossal, a fusion of Xylarian and Zidonian architecture that now served as ground zero for their mission. Teams of both species awaited them, their prior rivalries disregarded in the face of crisis. The synchronization must be impeccable, Kalen elucidated to the assembled crews. Xylarian atmosculpting systems were not engineered to interface with Zidonian technology. We are fundamentally endeavoring to instruct two entirely disparate languages to harmonize in unison. Clara stepped forward, her gestation glow lending authority to her words. But that is precisely what we epitomize: disparate species, disparate methodologies, collaborating to engender something novel, something superior. The work was intricate and perilous. As they reconfigured systems and rewrote protocols, the atmosphere continued to deteriorate. Several times, emergency teams had to rescue colonists from regions where the air had become unbreathable. The breakthrough emanated from an unforeseen source. During a crucial calibration sequence, Claria's gestation glow suddenly intensified, interfering with the Zidonian control crystals. Instead of inducing complications, however, the interference engendered a flawless harmonic resonance with the Xylarian systems. The progeny, Kalen apprehended, observing the readings in astonishment. It is naturally bridging our technologies, just as it bridges our species. Exploiting this revelation, they modified their approach. Claria's unique condition became the key to synchronizing the systems, her hybrid child's energy signature serving as a template for the integration. As the final sequences initiated, Kalen and Clara stood close, both of them observing as their amalgamated technology commenced mending the planet's atmosphere. The swirling chaos above gradually metamorphosed into stable, breathable patterns. "It is exquisite," Clara whispered, her glow reflecting in the facility's monitors. "Like a dance between our peoples." News broadcasts across the galactic concord exhibited the moment when the atmosphere stabilized, but they concentrated on something else as well: the image of a Xylarian and a Zidonian embracing as their joint endeavor salvaged an entire world. Later, in their private quarters back on the Colossus, Kalen and Clara celebrated their triumph in their own intimate manner. Their passion had been enhanced by the day's victory, their lovemaking having assumed novel dimensions since the gestation. Claria's glow generated an almost mystical atmosphere during their most private moments. "You comprehend what this signifies?" Clara inquired afterward, tracing patterns on Kalen's chest. "We have substantiated beyond dubiety that our peoples are more robust collectively than asunder." "We substantiated more than that," Kalen retorted, placing his hand over their burgeoning child. "We substantiated that affection is not merely about emotion, it is about engendering. Engendering novel existence, novel prospects, novel methodologies of perceiving the cosmos." A message from Grand Admiral Therion disrupted their moment. "The Galactic Council has summoned an emergency session. They desire to exploit your triumph as a template for future cooperation between species. They are dubbing it the Concordance Protocol." The Galactic Council chambers buzzed with tension as representatives from every major species assembled for the historic Concordance Protocol vote. Kalen stood confidently beside Clara, his bare torso drawing both appreciative gazes and disapproving scowls from diverse delegates. Their triumph on Xylos Tertius had rendered them symbols of interspecies cooperation, but it had also painted targets on their backs. "Movement in the upper galleries," Clara whispered, her security training never fully dormant. Her gestation glow had intensified in recent weeks, rendering her practically incandescent in the Grand Chamber. Before Kalen could respond, the chamber's energy shield abruptly failed. Armed militants from multiple species, spearheaded by the residual pure-strain extremists, emerged from concealed positions. "The natural order must be conserved," their leader, a Zidonian male in ceremonial armor, declared. We shall not permit the defilement of our bloodlines. Kalen moved instinctively to shield Clara, but she was already in motion, her battle training impeccably complementing his protective instincts. They functioned in seamless coordination, just as they had on Xylos Tertius. Recall our inaugural night together? Kalen inquired as they took cover behind a ceremonial pillar, energy weapon fire crackling around them. You are invoking that now? Clara laughed, her glow pulsating with both adrenaline and affection. Merely reflecting on how one unassuming act of benevolence precipitated all this. He gestured at the pandemonium surrounding them. Me pausing to assist someone weeping in the thoroughfare. And now you're about to help save galactic civilization, she teased, firing her defensive shield generator with lethal accuracy. The battle that ensued would subsequently be dubbed the last stand of segregation. Kalen employed his atmosculpting expertise to manipulate the chamber's environmental systems, while Clara coordinated with security forces from both Exwilarian and Zidonian contingents. Their child's unique energy signature, which had assisted in salvaging Xylos Tertius, now interfered with the militants' weapon systems. It was as if the cosmos itself was declaring its endorsement of their union. The tide turned when the matriarch of Lineage Enval arrived with reinforcements. She stood regally before the chamber and addressed not just the militants, but all present. Behold them, she commanded, pointing to Kalen and Clara. A Exwilarian who paused to assist a weeping stranger, and a Zidonian who dared to love beyond our constricted traditions. Their child bears not merely their genetic heritage, but the promise of what we can all become collectively. The fighting gradually ceased as her words permeated. The militant leader, observing his support crumble, made one final desperate endeavor to reach Clara. Kalen intercepted him, their struggle brief but intense. Your kind does not belong with us, the militant snarled. Kalen pinned him with a maneuver he had learned from Clara. That is where you are mistaken. Affection belongs everywhere. In the aftermath, as medical teams tended to the wounded and security processed the militants, the Galactic Council reconvened. The vote for the Concordance Protocol was unanimous. Later that night, in their quarters aboard the Colossus, Kalen and Clara celebrated in their own intimate manner. Their passion had solely burgeoned stronger through each challenge, their physical rapport a testament to the barriers they had shattered. You comprehend what astonishes me most concerning Exwilarians? Clara inquired afterward, her glow generating dancing patterns on their skin. Your aptitude for transforming diminutive moments into world-altering occurrences. You intend, like pausing to assist someone weeping? Precisely. She placed his hand over their child, whose energy now engendered harmonious resonances with both Exwilarian and Zidonian technology. One act of benevolence, rippling outward to alter the galactic concord. 6 months later, their child was born, a flawless amalgamation of both species, with Claria's jade-hued skin tone and Kalen's resolute optics. They named her Lyra Hope in the common tongue, though her Zidonian appellation comprised 15 syllables and 3 subharmonics. The matriarch, now a devoted great-grandmother, declared her the living embodiment of the Concordance Protocol. But to Kalen and Clara, she was simply their marvel, born from a fortuitous encounter and the audacity to love beyond boundaries. News broadcasts across the galactic concord exhibited their kindred, Exwilarian, Zidonian, and the exquisite synthesis of both, as a symbol of the nascent epoch. Mixed species couples commenced emerging from concealment, inspired by their narrative. Was it worthwhile? Kalen inquired one evening, observing their daughter play with both Exwilarian and Zidonian toys, her natural glow-generating patterns that delighted both species equally. Clara kissed him profoundly in response. A Exwilarian male possessed the empathy to inquire what had transpired when he observed me weeping, she stated. Everything wondrous in my existence emanated from that moment. The Colossus continued its mission across the stars, now a flagship for the Concordance Protocol. Its crew, a blend of all species, epitomized the future they had assisted in engendering. And at its core, a kindred born from an unassuming act of benevolence reminded everyone that affection acknowledges no boundaries, not even amidst the cosmos.